I'm looking at a blank bracket. So many possibilities. Who might go all the way to the national championship game? Who might win the national championship game? That doesn't actually matter because the real fun is the friends we make along the way in those first 2 days. One of our friends who will certainly get every pick right this weekend, Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald, joins us now on the 42 Degrees of Source hotline. Hi, Sam.
Hello, Connor. How are you?
Good. You got any hot beats on like 14 plus seeds for this bracket this weekend?
That's a good question. There's usually one, right?
There's usually one.
There's usually one. No, I mean, I'm sure Iowa State's not thrilled to be playing South Dakota State. I think that's probably not the game they were hoping. SDSU will have fans there. I don't know how many, but they'll have fans.
Yeah. They'll be drowned out by Iowa State fans, though.
They will. But that's probably not the preferred matchup for them. I think it could be a year where everybody kind of gets through it. And
you know what's funny? I kind of think the same thing. It's weird because we talked about the selection process and all those bubble teams who got their bids stolen at the end, and so what happens is there's some worse teams who might not have deserved to be there that made their way into the field that could end up being making it a little bit chalky, I guess, in the first couple of weekends. But we theorize these things and then it all blows up on us on Thursday and Friday.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm probably taking at least 3 and maybe all 4 11 seeds.
Ooh, okay.
New Mexico, Oregon, Duquesne, and then I can't remember who Texas Tech's playing, but
NC State.
Yeah, there's a good chance I will take all 4 of them.
So you're locking in for a Creighton, Oregon, Dana Altman, Greg McDermott matchup in Pittsburgh?
Probably, and that is, it's not as much to do with Oregon as it is, South Carolina, Clemson, BYU, and Texas Tech.
I'm not a believer in South Carolina either.
No, I'm not a believer in Clemson. And BYU, they had a nice season in the Big 12. I'll give them credit where it's due. I question how good they're going to be. Duquesne, I know what they can do. They're very tough, very physical. BYU's got to go out there early. That could be a tough matchup. It won't stun me if Illinois has moments against Morehead State.
Yep.
Because they're inconsistent in their effort.
If there's 114 that I would eye, it would be that one.
Yeah, they're not inconsistent in their talent. And Terrence Shannon, and I know it's controversial that he's even playing, but he's the one guy that brings it for them, and so he usually he basically saved Illinois against Nebraska because that game was about lost, and he just kept coming and coming, and by the game's end, he's the best guy on the floor and all the rest. So that's one to watch, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be a fun tournament. I don't know that it's going to be that opening weekend's going to have a ton of upsets, though, and you don't want them to. You want the top 3 seeds generally to win because it makes for a better second weekend by some margin. If you've got, you don't want to have a 15 seed in the second weekend the way that Creighton, hammered Princeton last year. That's no fun. You want good teams in that second weekend.
Yep. Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald is with us. Okay, so this morning, Matt Rhule popped in. Matt Rhule, the new, he's basically the interim athletic director at this point. I know that the title belongs to Dennis LeBlanc, but he kind of gets the big voice, and he's the face of the athletic department at this point. Like, do you feel like he maybe calmed the waters a little bit this morning because the Trev hatred stuff has gotten pretty wild. I don't know that burn is going to go away anytime soon, but Rhule sort of, he projected confidence about the future of what's going to happen here.
No question. I expected that from him. I'm not surprised in the least that he he had 5 days to think about it. I knew he would probably come. That's why I wrote what I wrote last week. I mean, I said, Husker Nation turns its hopeful eyes to him. And I said, he's the face of the athletic department now. And I think he knew that going into it. And he went up there and he said strong things. I think he laid out exactly the kind of AD that he thinks they should get. Somebody who's willing to take risks, somebody who's, willing to invest money. This is the time to make the hires and do all the hard things. And, I thought he set a really good tone and probably set a tone for a lot of the coaches in that department who are like, who's going to lead this thing? And Dennis LeBlanc, I think, is going to talk on the radio tonight, but that's not Dennis's role. Dennis isn't going to go in there and fire and brimstone. And he's not going to be Dave Remington from 5 years ago. And Dave Remington comes in and it's like, why aren't we have a walk-on program? And that's not what Dennis is going to be there to do. So,
yeah. Yep.
That's Rhule's job. And everybody kind of knows what he brings to the table and as a communicator. And so I anticipated all that. And I didn't talk to Rhule before I anticipated that. I think that's just kind of his MO, is that he's going to take leadership where there's a vacuum. I don't know. I mean, he's an intense guy. So, TO is more of a calming influence. I think Rhule gets you a little fired up. And so I think there were some people, media in the room, they're like, oh boy, yeah. And that's what he's good for. You do need somebody who's going to come in there and they could use somebody who's going to come in who's intense and who's a doer, but has the ability to maybe play a little bit more of the, soft is the wrong word, calm. They could use somebody that comes in and is intense, but is able to kind of look at a level gaze and say, okay, we'll get you what you need. You go win games, we'll get you what you need. This thing's going in the right direction. But they had
Sam? I didn't hear the click yet, though. Maybe we'll hold on. We'll wait. There he goes. Hey, Sam. There you go. Sorry, we lost you for a second.
I'm back. I'm driving through campus. Who knows?
Yeah.
Anyway.
What?
Yeah.
Okay. So on that idea, what kind of spin? How similar do you think the next athletic director should be to what Trev Albert's kind of vision was and what he was already kind of implementing and had laid the kind of seeds for as he leaves?
I think you can have a similar desire to win and a similar desire to do those things, and I think Rhule will probably want somebody who's a little bit like that. But I think you can do that in a personality trait that isn't necessarily Trev's personality. But I asked Rhule very specifically, I'm like, what kind of personality traits do you want to work for? And he was like, incredibly urgent and, unabashed. Like, he wants somebody to come in there who's going to be kind of is going to have his back and is going to have his back in a vocal way, a swashbuckler. So you listen to that, you pay some attention to that. I don't think they want somebody that's going to come in there and just not really pay much attention. I think they want somebody who's going to be intense, But again, can you do that in a personality package that's maybe a little different than what we've, what Trev was? I mean, Trev's a brilliant guy, and so he, so at times I thought he kind of got a little caught up in stuff that some things you just can't change. And so I think Rhule's a little bit like that, honestly. And, we'll see how it goes. I mean, I like Trev a lot. I told him I will miss our conversations, and that was true. I think he's been a highly effective leader in the 2.5 years he was in the role. And I think that's probably true of Rhule as well. But here's the trait that I think is similar about him. They're a little impatient, and Rhule's impatient, and he needs to be. The football program needs to get better. And Trev was too, I mean, he left after 2.5 years. I think he felt like, well, I'd set a vision in place and things weren't quite what I wanted it to be. And here's this other place over here. And so I think, you got to get somebody in there who's got vision, but also can kind of stick in the saddle.
Yeah, I got the sense that that Trev was impatient. I thought he would direct that, and sort of it would lead to more urgency here. And not that it didn't, but now he's not. We're not like, I think where he ultimately directed that was his opportunity to take another job. Like, that's one thing that I really didn't know about leading into last week. Maybe that's just something that I didn't know and everybody else did, but like his sort of wanted desire to maybe serve a bigger purpose, whether it's at the college football level or another job or take another stepping stone to get to that point. Like, I was sort of under the impression that he was kind of a lifer up until that happened. Were you?
I was not. No, I didn't think it was going to be now, though. I thought it was going to be, 3, 4, 5 years down the line when the stadium project is done. No, I thought he'd be a 5 or 6 year guy. That was my sense. I just and some of it is once he got into this role, at UNO, I think he was kind of the guy and so overwhelmingly strong personality and smart in that environment that like everybody's just like, yeah, we're just going to do what Trev wants. He knows all the money people here in Omaha. That's what. At Nebraska, there's a bunch of people down there that have been around a long time who care about it, who are involved, invested, and they have their own ideas and their own worldviews and their own perspectives, and they're going to go about it their own way. So I always kind of thought it'd be like a 5 or 6 year deal, but here it is now. And as I wrote this morning, I think on some level it's a wake up call. It's a wake up call to some of the people down there who are stakeholders of for many years Nebraska fired the people before they could walk out. And here's a guy that was successful there and people wanted to stay.
Yep.
And he said, no, I'm going to go. And that's like the moment where the guy goes into his house and his wife's taking the suitcase and she's gone.
You're like, what did I do?
Moment.
Yeah.
That's a sobering moment. Like you better take a breath and think, okay, now Ted Carter left and we liked him. Trev Alberts left and we liked him. We all kind of like Matt Rhule. And by we, I mean the people who are stakeholders. What do we need to do to make sure that this ends here? And again, Rhule's not going to say anything other than what he said, to be clear. He's going to say exactly what he said. And of course, that's all true. But Nebraska needs to respond in kind and understand that, like, if you're going to go into this universe, and this is the challenging thing going forward, if you're going to go into this universe of high level college athletics, the money people need to be aligned. They need to be on board,
yep.
And they need to, and the stakeholders do too. And let me say this one more additional thing. Tom Osborne was a guy that always did more with less. And on some level, Tom kind of took less. You know what I mean? He always kind of, he was the guy that, probably did it a little bit more on the cheap with guys that were willing to do it with him. And maybe they didn't have the highest priced assistants or whatever. And that was in the old Big 8 and in the early Big 12. And that's not what this is going to be. The Big 10 is a money leak. And Nebraska has to accept it and understand it. And understand that if they want to continue to hold on to Matt Rhule, there's things they're going to have to do. And, Matt Rhule's an East Coast guy, so there's things you're going to have to do. And if they're prepared to do those things, I think they're going to be in good shape. But
right.
This is a wake-up call moment. Wake-up call.
I think what you're getting at maybe is, does that mean giving him a voice in the search for his boss?
Sure. I think they're going to give him that anyway. That's already baked into the cake. Still have that. I think it's more he can't put a bunch of options. Can't make things hard where they don't need to be hard. Can't run into a situation, and I'm in management too, so I understand some of these things in a different way on a much smaller scale. But this can't turn into, well, UNO wants this, So
yeah,
I'm not sure we're going to be able to do that. Or, well, I mean,
or the Big
we've got
Ten,
other
playing ball with the Big Ten and stuff like that. Yeah,
yeah, you can't get into that. Like, can't do it. It can't be part of the conversation. Like, you got to get back in the AAU for one thing. Got to figure out a way to do that. Again, I'm not saying that I'm advocating this. I'm saying this is the framework by which people should think about this. This can't be and that's one of the challenges that I think the university will have to address as it moves forward. Is like, the state has always really supported public education, including at the collegiate level. People can look at other states and they can see the level of commitment at some of those other states and compare that to Nebraska if they're in the mood to pretend that Nebraska doesn't support their universities. Going forward, you're going to have to make, some harder conversations about, well, do we need to have this, and this, and that, and that, and under no circumstances can we compromise the University of Nebraska athletic department is competing against Michigan and Ohio State. And if you think that, Michigan, there are no obstacles at Ohio State. I don't know about Michigan. That's a strange place, but there aren't many there.
Well, what he said today was we cannot care about optics, right? We cannot care about how stuff looks, and I think what he's talking about is probably where, a bigger picture where Nebraska's, support and ultimately probably money goes, right?
Correct. Yes. Like this has got to be one of those. Yes. I mean, for sure. It can't turn into, well, what are we doing over here, and who will this upset? Will this upset, like, who will this upset as it relates to, this person's initiative or that person's initiative? And I'll tell you what, in my job, for example, when we talk about how we cover teams in sports at the World-Herald or whatever, I talk about these things called public utility. And a public utility is the kind of thing that you really can't do without, right? So, like, if we stopped covering Nebraska football, people would notice, like, right away. Like, we just stopped going to Nebraska volleyball matches. And we, obviously share with Husker Extra, the beat writer down there. But if we just stopped going, people are like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
If we just stopped going to Nebraska women's basketball, Nebraska men's basketball, or Creighton basketball, people would be like, why are you stopping covering this stuff? Those are public utilities. Like, if you shut them off, people notice, like, right away because they don't have heat or light. Not everything is a public utility, right? Not everything is. And so one of the challenges that I would have in my job, as an example, is explaining to people who personally care about X, Y, or Z what our market says, or what we say, what you care about is important to you, but it cannot necessarily be our priority. The solution cannot be all. And sometimes I think within any organization, including the university system, there's a feeling that the solution has to be all, because if it's not all, then someone will be upset. And this is part of how you get to where they're at. You have to prioritize. Mm-hmm. And priorities mean making choices. Those aren't easy to make all the time. And I think Matt Rhule has got to be a very, very high priority. There's other things. I mean, UNMC is certainly a high priority. That's a shining star on the station, that is Nebraska, University of Nebraska. But, like, you can't, everything can't be equally important, because there's equal passion. Equal passion doesn't necessarily mean all goes through, and that can be challenging for people to navigate.
But the thing, Sam, about Trev was he had the institutional knowledge, and he kind of understood, and I don't think he was necessarily afraid to piss people off or make people mad or whatever it was, but he kind of had the equity where he felt like maybe he could do some of those things. And so that's what Nebraska's losing right now in that seat, which I feel like is a pretty significant deal.
Yes. I mean, to some degree, I think that's true. They're losing some of that. That's part of the challenge. But you can get an athletic director in there who might be advantaged in the way of, like, they don't know what they don't know, right? They're not privy to anything. And so they have to go in and they have to learn people, and they make their own relationships. And I don't think anybody, there's not a lot of rivalries or personal rivalries or any of those things built up. Or, Scott Frost had to deal with this too. When Scott got back, Scott kind of knew the landscape, and he knew all the former players and this and that. And one of the that can be a good thing, but it can also be a real bad thing.
Yeah,
it's like, well, you kind of know where all the where all your rivals are.
Are you using it to your advantage, or are you using it to the school's advantage or the greater good's advantage? Yes,
for sure. And I've never felt like Scott got on the other side of that. I think that was like something that actually held it back. Is that there was just too much concern over, and so I think that's part of what's happened in Nebraska. It's just things turn in on itself a little bit, and Trev's going to go to a place where he doesn't really know anybody, and that'll probably be an advantage in some ways. And you have to try to figure out a way to work together. But Nebraska's got to get all the stakeholders, and that's not just regions. That's a bunch of people in the room, and say, okay, like, what are our priorities? What's important to us? What is what do we value? And then stick to that. Like, not, well, we value this today because we like this person, and then in 6 months we will value something else because this person complained, and we're constantly responding or respondent instead of ahead of the game. So like, they've got to get to a point where they A, have a vision, and then B, they kind of stick to it. And I think part of Trev's departure is just related to whatever the vision was in 2021 or 2022. It was wavering a little bit once Carter left, and there's people that are like, actually, I want to do this. And I don't want a stadium expansion. We'll never know, Connor, if the stadium expansion, if Trev had come up with a much more modest vision of like, hey, we're going to keep South Stadium as it is, but we're just going to put seat backs in there and kind of make it nice and whatever. If he had gone with that vision, maybe some of this conversation doesn't happen. But he went with the $450 million. Let's tear down South Stadium and let's rethink the entire concept vision. And I think that's just a little daunting to people. I think it's like, oh wow, okay, well, we just built this, and
he's a dreamer. I mean, that was always going to be what he was going to introduce,
For sure.
Yeah,
and I'm rambling because we've had a lot obviously to cover in the last week, and it's not over, but just trying to download some of the key concepts of, like, it's very basic stuff. Like you get a piece of paper out, you make a list, and then you're like, here are the things that we're going to be about. And in managing at a job and family, in church, and anywhere in life, it's one of the hardest things to do, is to decide what you're going to be about and then be about it. Because almost invariably, what I've found in my own experience is one of the hardest things you can do is tell somebody to stop doing something and do something else. Not even telling them to do a new thing, but stop doing an old thing. And they don't want to stop. And so, like, all the things that become true, it can be hard to change ideological course. And what Matt Rhule's trying to do with that football program is he's absolutely trying to change that, and he's going to need obstacles to be removed as he does it. And Nebraska will have to decide how important that is.
Yep, no doubt about it. Sam, well done. Good stuff, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, take care.
Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. There's a lot wrapped in there. There was a lot wrapped in there. Come back. We gotta take a break because we're like significantly behind. So a couple things to wrap up. Maybe a little bit on that. Josh just sent me a nerd chart, which is exciting.
Very.
And poll questions, tell you what to watch. All to come on Connor Happer Show on 1620 The Zone.
I'm a fabulous driver.
The Connor Happer Show.
I'm one of the best friends you could ever have in your life.
On 1620 The Zone.
I hate you.